A really famous example of engineering is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, California. I mentioned that there are different kinds of engineers, and a civil engineer is someone who designs and constructs buildings, roads, and yep, bridges. For the person who designed the Golden Gate Bridge, what was the problem that they needed to solve? People couldn't travel in or out of San Francisco, which is surrounded on most sides by water, without a boat. Who had the problem? Residents of San Francisco mostly, but really anybody traveling in the area. And why was the problem important to solve? Well, you didn't want a whole bunch of San Francisco residents trapped in San Francisco forever, even if it is a super cool city. Plus, you wanted people outside of San Francisco to be able to travel to the city easily if they needed to. So the Golden Gate Bridge was engineered as a solution to this problem. In addition to civil engineers, there are also mechanical, electrical, chemical, computer, nuclear, and software engineers, and the list goes on. Let's talk.
And the list goes on. So with that, Mr. Eric Bradley, Loyola Marymount graduate, University of Redlands graduate, University of
Yes.
Redlands graduate, and now several years in the game of civil engineering with So Cal Edison. If you get a So Cal Edison bill that comes to your house, can you raise your hand in the meeting?
Yeah,
That's
right. Don't ask me
that's
about it.
okay. Without further ado, please, Mr. Bradley, can you start by giving us just a mini bio of where you come from, what your high school experience was like, and how you got started with civil engineering?
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Pineda. So, hello, everybody. It's good to see all the icons that are on here. It's almost like when I'm doing meetings for work. But I come from the IE. So if you don't know where that is, it's in the Inland Empire. So it's almost just like where you're from. It's just another desert on the other side. So I grew up in Rialto, went to Rialto High School, and so grew up out that way. Was the youngest of three. My dad did corrections as a job occupation. My mom, she stayed home with us until we were about, I don't know, probably about 12 years old. And so high school life was good. I think I always tell people I practiced with the basketball team. I didn't play very much. I sat on the bench most of the time, but it was all right. I think that's when I figured out I don't think I'm going to get out of here playing hoops. Um, and so that's when that changed to, I actually got into Avid probably about my end of my freshman year of high school. So started doing Avid, was in some after school programs, and was literally looking in a book of careers at some point because I used to do tinker with different stuff, take stuff apart, not put it back together the same way. So that was always fun. But just from that, people were like, hey, you know what, you're good at math and science. Why don't you go that route? And I was already doing AP, all the AP math and science classes, and was literally looking at a book of careers, and had that moment of like, all right, what's over 100,000? That was my mindset. Everyone else, they like passion, do it, because it was. I'll say it like this to keep it real. Like I would always see my parents having all these papers on the table, and they would always be like looking at them. I was like, man, what are those? And like, these are bills. And I was like, what are like? You guys should get rid of those. Wouldn't it be easy if you pay it all at once? And obviously now people pay stuff on their phone, right? Whatever. I just knew to myself like, hey, I want to have options and choices. And so, I just had in my head 100,000 was a good number to go for as a career income. We're in California. You want to have a house. You want to have a decent car. You want to buy maybe one or two Jordans. You might have to pay resale. And so it's just that mindset. And so ended up going down the engineering route. I looked at doctor and attorney and all that good stuff, but engineering seemed like it would, hold my attention. And civil engineering was one of them, like you just saw in that video, which literally talked about everything in society. So everything that builds civilization, it was civil engineering. And I was like, well, I'm sure I'll find something that'll work out. And so was trying to figure out where to go to college, right, was the next step. And was, I don't know, I probably had 5 or 6 college acceptances, a lot of stuff in the area. Was Cal Poly, UCR, Cal State San Bernardino, Loyola Marymount, UC Irvine. There we go. And so I think I was waiting for that SC call, and it never came, but it was all right. And then I think I was dabbling, thinking about MIT, which MIT is over on the Boston East Coast side. That's your high-end, high-tech school, versus Caltech is over here in Pasadena. And so ended up going to Loyola Marymount. From just, once again, actually what caught my eye there was a Black student overnight that they had, which, when we talk about, that was ran by the BSU of LMU. And that got me going to be like, yeah, this is the place. And long story short, ended up graduating in 4 years, which when you're paying $50,000 or whatever it was at LMU, you don't want to be there longer. So you want to get it done in 4 and get out. And so I ended up finishing that engineering. But even how I ended up at Edison, there were some alumni of LMU that came back to the school to talk to us in engineering. And, my mindset is they're talking about all this cool stuff. They're like, oh, it's great work-life balance, blah, blah. And I'm just like, well, how much are you guys getting paid over there? And they told me, I don't know. They said engineers will probably start off at 60-something, mid-60s. I was like, that's a good number, because I knew how much money my parents made from doing my FAFSA. And so from the FAFSA, I was like, okay, if mom and dad are around that range, I'm already be there at 22. And then we could just, only up from there. And so I think that was, all these things, I guess I always look at big picture of like, hey, you're always going to do something fun. You can always enjoy a lot of different things, but you want to be able to actually live life as well. And so ended up doing that when I first started working at Edison. And everything's about connections too. And so I ended up meeting the guy that he used to go to Loyola when it was just Loyola. And so he was there 30 years before I was, but he was running the engineering group. And super cool Italian guy, and connected with him. He opened up the door, and I was able to interview and was able to be at Edison. And so from there, started doing my master in business and finance at University of Redlands. And so got those 2 degrees to, be able to go up the management track. Because I think from doing engineering, I was like, I don't know if I can do calculations all day. It's like, if any of you are in Calculus 1, yeah, just imagine that. But I think it's all the other parts you get to try to figure out. And so that's where I'm at now. So I'm a manager of a team of engineers now. For the years I've been at Edison, was able to move up. So now I manage a team of engineers, and that's a lot different than doing design, I'll tell you that. But we've worked on some great projects. We've been able to, I remember they took us up in helicopters for work early on. And if you've ever been in a helicopter, it's crazy. They have the doors hanging off, and you're like, all this wind is coming in, and you're literally I'm like, I'm just here to do calculations. Like, I don't need this amped up experience. And they have you doing that. They have you hiking in the forest. We'll be out in the Lancaster area trying to find, all the different avenues. We're all lost. I'm just like, man, could they have gotten more creative with the streets? But it was just a little dig. But it was just fun times of always being out. You're always on an adventure, just trying to figure out where all the towers go for Edison and how to put them back up for electricity to happen, so you can charge your phones, charge your cars, be able to have even what you're doing now on. Wi-Fi doesn't work without electricity, right? So, with that said, I didn't want to talk too long, but wanted to open up for any questions some of you guys may have, or I don't see a chat, so.
Does everyone see the chat? It should be disabled.
I see it.
Okay. Yes. So if you have any questions at all for Mr. Bradley, you can type it in the chat. We did have some questions to start, but definitely the conversation is open for students to ask questions. We have some questions to start. So let me open those up. Hold on.
I saw a few different things about people wanted to be, was it professors, kinesiology. I usually use Zoom, so this is my first time on Google Meet. I'm like, what is this contraption?
So you can imagine how we as teachers felt last year doing distance learning.
Oh, I
where
know
we had to
exactly.
kind of choose whether we do Google Meet or do Zoom, and
Right.
have the teachers doing one thing, half were doing the other. But I will get the questions started.
Right on.
Since it's Black History Month, and you obviously being a black male, talk to the students about what it's like being probably one of very few people who look like yourself in that particular industry, and what could be something that some of our young brothers who may be on the call could be looking forward to life in a corporate situation.
That's a good question, Jeff. Well, I, I don't know if you've ever heard of the token, um, but
Yeah.
that was me pretty much. I even at LMU, um, Miss Pineda, she was there. So it was always like you see all these different people there, and you'll see all the different black people in one section, but when you go off to your majors, you're on your own. And so I was the one brother that was doing engineering, and I think that just got me ready for what corporate world would be like. And I remember going to different NSBE, so for National Society of Black Engineers, I would go to events like those, and you're like, man, where are all these black people at? Where are all these, black engineers at? They're all there for that 1 week, and then you go back home, right? And so I would say you want to make sure you find mentorship from whoever. I wouldn't try to say you have to try to find I need to find an African American or a black man. You might not find one. And so if you can't, you talk to, like I said, there was an Italian guy. His name was Jerry Amalfitano. Great guy. He passed away from leukemia a couple of years ago, but it was just, there are some people there like they want to help anyone. And I will show that I was hungry. And he was like, okay, hey, this is where, because I remember there's a point, he was like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to start this big project. And I was like, man, I hope you find that person. Because he was trying to have me do something I wasn't even ready for. And he was just like, I think you'd be good for this, and move me over to this. I don't know. It was like some $4 billion project that it was craziness, like for 5 years. But it helped prepare me for a lot of stuff. And so I would say you want to be ready for, don't always think that people are out against you. There's sometimes I would be out working with some of the construction guys, and some of these guys come from all over the US, and they have Confederate flags in the trucks and things of that nature. And so you see him, you're like, hey, how's it going, Bob? And, they'll have that Southern drawl too. So you're almost kind of like, don't say it. Don't. I'm waiting for you to say something. Don't say boy now. And I think it's just, you just kind of, I think you just have to understand who you are. At least for me, I always, if you're, from 7th to 12th grade, I know back in high school, I remember having like a scripture mantra for my own self, and that was Jeremiah 29:11. You don't have to go Bible with it. You can pick whatever you want. But it's like everyone has to figure out what's the one thing that's going to help you keep your mind straight, keep your focus right, understand where your identity comes from, so that whenever someone else does say something else that's out of pocket, it's not going to throw you off. So hopefully that answers your question, Jeff.
Oh, that was solid. That was solid.
Jewel has her hand up.
Okay. Yes, I heard him say NSBE. I was an honorary member of NSBE
All right.
at FAMU because my husband is an engineer. So I was the kids leaving right now, an honorary member of NSBE, and I love NSBE. I have nothing to do with engineers, but I love me some NSBE. So you really,
There we
being a
go.
part of that is very important, that in that little community. I definitely agree on that. Because I didn't know nothing about black engineers at all until I met my husband. And I saw the difference in their class because FAMU and FSU share the same engineering building. So I used to sit in the classes. This a long time ago. I used to just sit in the class. I should have been at my own school, but we ain't gonna talk about that. I used to sit in his classes, and you would see, like, I'm like, oh, there's white people. Oh, there's black people. Oh, okay. And then get together. Like, those are his best friends. I'm telling you, my husband's best friends is them. There's about 5 of them, and they're all engineers. They're all engineers, and it's wonderful. And I learned a lot from them, especially from the NSBE community. So I just want to throw that out there.
That's all right,
Oh,
Jewel.
Teachers have one too, but that's just back in Florida. We have a group in Florida, a black community too, future educators. But yeah, so there's actually a national black one. But anyways, but that's all my 2 cents. I'm just sorry.
No, we always had some of the people from outside majors because they always come to the conference and be at the club trying to party with us. And we're like, what's your
Those
major
conferences
again?
was lit. Sorry.
There we go.
Sorry. Those conferences was lit. I never forget them. Sorry,
They were.
Let my business.
I was like, all these people can't be engineers because they're partying way too hard. People were coming through on their frat lines, and I was like, we have some people that snuck in. Let's see, we have a question here. How did you know the role was the right fit for you after college? I did a lot of internships, so I think that's a good question because internships help you figure out what you don't like. I think a lot of people think, internships will help me figure out what you like, but it help you also figure out what you don't like. And so when I was looking into engineering, there's all types of engineering to do. And so I remember I did 2 internships and 1 like research project at UCLA while I was at Loyola. And so all of those kind of helped prep me for what the job would look like. And then you actually start understanding what actually work looks like. So that's kind of funny. It's just like, wait, so we're just on emails all day? So those are some of the things you start learning over time of there's the stuff that you see in college and then there's what happens at work. And so there's sometimes you see a lot of cool stuff in school, a lot of different things that you're doing for engineering. You see every part of engineering, and then when you get to your job, you might only see 2 parts of it. So I think that's a big thing of internships. So a lot of you guys, I would almost say like, who even has a job right now? Do any of you guys have a job just working in high school? You can raise your hand if you have a job. Looking for the hands. We got 1. Tatiana has a job. Tatiana's the only one.
Tatiana
So
got
like,
a job? That's news to me.
I was about to ask you that when Tatiana got a job. Patterson, you ain't know Tatiana got a job? That's a new one.
Where do you work at, Tatiana?
I currently work at or in the process of working at Little Caesars.
Yes, the extra most bestest pizza. That's what got me through. So this, like, think about that, right? It's we all have different jobs to make money. And I remember I was cutting grass when I was like 12 to 18. So I couldn't even, Krispy Kreme wouldn't even hire me. I don't know why. But I just cut grass, which kind of had that entrepreneur mindset happening because then I didn't have to pay taxes, which was great, or have taxes taken out because I was getting paid on my own. And so I think those are the little things you start doing of how you're going to pay through college, right? What are you going to do to sustain and buy books? What are you going to do for your car? All that great stuff. And so all those things factor in. And I think you guys should probably figure out, I'll say like this, one thing I've learned now, which I wish I would have thought of then a little bit more, was how do you guys want to live, right? So I think you should probably think of how do you want to live and then figure out a little bit more of like, okay, what lifestyle do I want to be living? What kind of things do I want to be able to experience? Vacations, different stuff. Actually, where do you want to live? Some people, I didn't stay in Rialto. So it just becomes, those are the kind of questions you just start thinking of to figure out how to design your life and then start figuring out, okay, who do I know that's living like that? Or how am I going to get there? And I think those are some of the things that, you might not hear all the time, but probably things you will help you start thinking about as well. Any other questions? There's another question. Oh. What can I do now as a student to make myself competitive in the hiring process for this field? What is your favorite part of the job? I'll answer both those questions separately. I guess my favorite part of the job is, hey, I like getting paid. So getting paid is great. Getting bonuses are great. But I think I like being able to have fun with all the different people on my team. Like I said, we get to go out and go. We've experienced so many different things. We've flown all over the U.S. Well, you wouldn't think would happen because you're Southern California, Edison. But I remember going to Chicago, going to Atlanta, going to Toronto, Tucson, we're going to Seattle, we're going to Salt Lake City, we're going to parts of Texas. And so you start experiencing all these different places, going to different conferences, meeting other engineers, going to Colorado. And I think those are cool things to go travel on the company's dime, to even eat on the company's dime, which is super cool. Imagine having, you get to, they say, hey, you can spend $75 on food. And you're like, what? Let's get the steak. So those are just fun times, but I think also too, just having fun, solving problems, being able to know that you were able to get the power back on for a certain neighborhood, a certain situation that has happened. Because those things do come up, and when it happens real, and it happens big. And so there was just something that happened a couple months ago that I had to send my team out to Arizona. It was the Arizona-California border, and you had to drive like 5 hours to get there. The helicopters couldn't take us, and I actually ended up having to go out there my own self, which it was about 100-something degrees outside, in the desert. And the great part is they actually have these nice luxury porta potties. If you've never seen them, they've used them for like the Emmys and things like that. But they're like, there's AC in them. I'm like, this is nice. Anyways, those are some of the weird, crazy stuff, but also too being able to do stuff like this to talk to people about engineering, right? And so those are cool parts I like about my job, and what things to kind of prepare you. I see another one here. I answered that other first question first. What should you be doing right now to kind of, I think right now you have to start figuring out to work in this field, or even to get an internship would be your first bet, right? First get into college, and then right after freshman year, your mind should be thinking of getting an internship in whatever field, whether it's engineering or the one that you want to choose, because it'll help you kind of start figuring out how much you like or don't like it. Because I have friends that went to law school and they didn't even like doing that after they started working, which law school is not cheap. And I'm like, you don't want to do it for a couple of years at least. And so I think that would be your first thing to be thinking of right now is, all you guys know how to study. You guys know how to do that part. I think it's just staying focused to get to where you want to get to. And I saw there was another question. I don't know where it went to.
Yeah, that's okay. There's a question in the chat from Tatiana. Tatiana asks, what other field of study would you have gone into if engineering was not optional, and why?
Man, you know what? I was going to be a rapper, and, I had bars. No, I'm just playing around. Miss Pineda probably was like, no, I don't remember you doing that in college. You know what? That was a good question. I think I would have probably just gone the business route. And I actually, there was a point I thought about going into the financial sector of managing portfolios and portfolio management. And so like all the stuff that people do in New York, I thought that was cool, because I knew those guys would make $500,000-$600,000. And I was like, man, I already know numbers. And I thought about doing that right after I got my MBA, actually, even after college was done. So I think one thing for where you guys are at is actually being exposed to different types of, ways to make money, right? Different types of careers. So that's great that you guys are even on here, because I think once you become aware of more ways to make our different careers and different career paths, you're like, oh, I never even thought that could happen. And so I think I would have probably gone down that route to do portfolio management, and would have hopefully been fine. But you know what? I think sometimes God will take you on the path that you're supposed to go on. Sometimes you'll think all this different stuff, and it probably wouldn't have even happened. So that's a great question, though. But yeah, I do think of, putting some songs together, some tracks every now and again. But I just gave it up. Gave it up for numbers.
Listen, God will open that door when it's supposed to be open. We're going to go to the next question.
I'm like, Drake, here's my stuff, man. I'm just playing around. What is the best way to find out which branch of engineering is right for me? That's a good question. So when I was in college, I was trying to figure out, or not college, even in high school, I was looking at the basic engineering types, which there was electrical, mechanical, civil, and then chemical. And then I looked to see what you could do with each of them, right? So this is, you have to do a little bit of research of where you want to go to, right? And then it also too becomes, who do you know that you can talk to? I know for me, I had different connections from the church world. There's all kinds of people there. There's doctors, there's attorneys, there's engineers. And so when you find out which ones, whatever career path people do, you kind of can ask them questions. So that's just networking, right? And so that's what allows you to kind of say, hey, what do you do all day? Or what, what's a little bit of what you do? And so I utilize just doing my research after in high school to figure out, like, I just looked at descriptions of each position, and then I would type them in to figure out, like, hey, how in demand are these positions and things like that. And so that's what I used to help figure out. I did also look to see what engineer got paid the most out of the four, but it was all those things factored in. But I knew civil was the best for me because I started liking bridges and buildings, and I was entertaining a business or a job offer with KB Homes, which would have been designing homes and doing those kinds of things for all your residential housing. But I ended up going the Edison route instead. So that's a great question. The pizzas.
All
Make
right.
sure you put enough cheese and pepperoni on them.
I got a quick question. Maybe you can kind of follow up on that. For those of us who are English teachers and not engineers, could you just give us a brief kind of description of the difference between civil and mechanical and something like that, just an overview, so those people in the back can kind of understand, the difference between the few areas.
No, that's a good question, Jeff. So I would first start off with electrical has to deal with everything surrounding electrical components. So circuits, so any type of design. So electrical and computer science are going to be all the people that help do coding. They might be doing the coding that's in your iPad or your laptop right now. So they'll help design the whole circuit board that runs your computers, your laptop, TVs, any type of electronic device. So a lot of the people that you might think of in Silicon Valley, a lot of them might be electrical engineers or computer science. So anything for programming, for all the different stuff, for doing stuff on the internet, even working for the government, right? So they can be there. They can be hacking into stuff. There's all kinds of stuff people can be doing. So I have some, people I know that have helped design certain apps for cars for how they do the voice activation. So a lot of voice response in a lot of cars, some people have done those things. So that's a lot of electrical computer science. The next one is mechanical engineering. So there's quite a few people that did that in college as well. Mechanical engineering is going to deal with anything that deals with equipment that moves. So that could be the design of cars, the engines for them, airplanes. So going into aerospace engineering is a lot of mechanical engineering. Any kind of apparatus that's moving, mechanical engineers are involved with that, and also the materials of, let's say if you wanted to do something for going to space, mechanical engineers will help out with all those components for designing that, and also too the materials that's needed to deal with all the different temperatures that that object might see when being cold or being super hot, and then testing those things. So I mean, there's some guys in college that they would design Formula One cars at school, and they would drive around on campus at LMU. And so welding, all that stuff that they're doing down there. So mechanical engineering is usually the one that a lot of people want to work on cars or airplanes, stuff like that. Civil engineering, like I said, is going to be anything around civilization. So that could be dirt, help with water treatment. So how do all you guys are taking showers, and like, where's all that water coming from? So civil engineers are helping figure out how to treat the water that's being used so they can be reused again. So they're also doing stuff with dirt, helping build houses. The schools that you're in, that's designed by a civil engineer. The electrical components are going to be everything else that keeps all the circuits running through the school. That's, you have your electrical engineers designing that. And so those are a lot of the big things that your civil, electrical, and mechanical are doing. And then your chemical engineers, they're going to be doing stuff dealing with chemicals. So they could be doing stuff at the labs. Some guys, they'll work at Chevron, right? So you need somebody to start figuring out the mixtures for your gas when you get crude oil from, the South or the East, Middle East, right? And so they'll work for Chevron, making sure you can have gas for your car. So chemical engineers are going to help with you guys being able to fuel your cars, right? and then also all the other different chemical components that are being used for cleaning and things like that. So that's about the gist of the 4 types of engineering that's out there. I guess that was Sia's question too. That they try to claim it.
Thank you. Well, I have another question too.
Right on.
Okay. So, what, so you work for Edison now, but then what's your future goals? Like if you want to become an engineer, what kind of career path can you have? Because you said you all about the dollars. So like what, like where do you max out? How far, how high can you go with this?
Are you talking about how much money you can make as an engineer? Is that what you're
Well,
asking?
and even like career path, like, maybe becoming a CEO, having your own company. How do you, take engineering and parlay it into something else?
Well, I think that's a good question, because everyone kind of has different aspirations after we get to a certain point. So let's say an engineer starts off. I know people will range from 60 to 80,000. You start off making, right, and then after you work for about 5-6 years, you'll hit the 6-figure range. You pass 100, and then it becomes, if you want to probably hit the 150 to 175 range, you go into management or some type of executive role, which it just goes up after that, and salary. And so there's a salary piece, but then there's responsibility that comes with the money. So I think there's, so some people I know, they just stay doing engineering. And the problem there is you can become an expert in engineering, but sometimes you might not get as much money because they'll say, hey, you're stopping here. But some people, they like the engineering part, but they don't want to deal with the management situation. And so they'll stay there. So then their salary kind of stays in a certain spot for a long time. And so to kind of make the jump to go higher up, I made that jump to go to the management route. And kind of answer your question, I thought about all kinds of stuff. Engineers were always trying to solve the problem of certain things in life, right? So I was looking into franchising for a little bit. Some of my friends, colleagues had Cold Stone, Juice It Up, things like that. And so started going down that route, making up some different business plans outside of my career. And so, like I said, engineering is still great. Still trying to figure out if I want to stay on the management track to go up to an executive status, which is just a different ball game to play. But you have to know a lot of people for that. But also too, you have to be able to show that you can produce. And so those are when the ball game changes. You have to start evaluating stress situations, because they'll call you all the time. But actually right now, my things have changed a little bit, that I was able to meet a gentleman. It's funny, he was actually a biology school teacher at a high school. He taught out this way in Chino, and I don't know, he was probably about almost 60 when I met him, but he had retired at 35 from teaching by creating another source of income. And so to kind of answer your question, when I met him, I was all on him because I saw a way to have time and money. And so that was a ball game. I didn't know a lot of men that were able to be full-time dads and full-time husbands. I thought that was cool. And so that's where my track is going now, to be able to create a situation where you have a lot of time and your money situation is fine. And so, because it's either that or you work 40 years. And so I'm simple. I wouldn't say I'm that smart, but I just talk to a lot of people. And I think that's where, so to kind of answer your question, that's where things have evolved to. There's no way I would have, tried to have gone down that route, because I just wouldn't have. I think association changes everything, right? So if you hang out with people that smoke weed, you're probably going to smoke weed. If you hang out with friends that buy sneakers, you're probably going to buy sneakers. It just keeps going. So if you hang around people that are like, hey, this is kind of how we think about certain things, then you're going to get exposed to a different way of thinking, perspective. And so that was what happened to me, because I was kind of just looking for other mentorship and different people that had different results at that time a couple of years ago. And just to keep it super real, like Edison was going through layoffs at that time. And they literally told everybody, like, hey, everybody pack your stuff. We'll tell you if you're staying or leaving a week from now. And I was like, what kind of breakup is this? And it woke me up, because I thought, hey, man, I'm good. I'm the only black dude here. Nothing's going to happen to me. And some other people were gone that looked just like me, and I was like, oh no. And that woke me up to be like, I need to be thinking more of creating a situation for myself so that no one's in control of my paycheck. But that's a whole different that's a whole different discussion. But that, hopefully that answers your question of, that's kind of where my mind is now is, yes, you do what you can to best yourself, start your career, make your money, to a point that, if you want to do something else, build something else as outside of what you're doing. And so it becomes, if you want the whole extraordinary life, you have to do extra. Or if it just stays ordinary and you're fine with it, then that's fine too. So let's see, any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna hit the pause button there because that is exactly what we were going to go into a breakout room conversation about. Is just kind of speaking that I want to manifest my future. I want to know what it is that my plan is, goals are, where do I see my life 5, 10 years from now. So we're going to open up the small breakout rooms just so you can have that space with like-minded people that are dedicated toward having a successful future. What do you see yourself doing, students and advisors? What do we want to see ourselves doing a year from now, 5 years from now, et cetera? So we'll take 5 minutes in the breakout rooms and then we'll come back to discuss more in Black knowledge.
I'm so
Thank you, Ms.
sorry.
Jewel.
I
That's
have to go to track practice, so I'll see you guys. Jeff, I'll check in with you tomorrow to find out what we all discussed. Thank you.
Perfect.
I love you guys. I love you, Pete. Hang in there. Thank you for the guest speaker also. You really brought back some memories. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.
Excellent. All right. Okay, so those rooms are open. We'll come right back at 4:03. Jayla, do you see the invite for the breakout room? right. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Oh my gosh, I just had an excellent conversation with Brendan.
I'm telling you, I love to see just all of the aspirations and like we just want you all to stay motivated and stay encouraged. Like there's so many possibilities for you. Mr. Bradley, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time because you were definitely able to kind of illustrate how those pathways come to be, and it happens through your pursuit, right? You pursue it, you make it happen, and I mean it's just the dedication and the perseverance that's going to get us there. So thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And we are following up, hopefully, to have vendors in participation for our Black Knowledge Bowl that is coming up very, very quickly. Next month is the Black Knowledge Bowl, the end of the month. And so hopefully, if we have that opportunity and you're able to make the Black Knowledge Bowl, you are definitely invited to continue to share that information. And I mean, graduation is around the corner for our seniors, right? So they can definitely be career minded, especially toward the fields of engineering. So thank you. So we got just a few minutes left. But were there any insights or anything, any topics that came up in the breakout that we want to share out before we continue with the Black Knowledge Bowl? I know, Ms. Dawes, you said you had a good conversation with Brendan.
Yes, I was just about to share that. I actually found he is in like some kind of gaming league where they're at Eastside, and he said Cortell has it, and they're playing video games and like as a sport, and to learn it, to do it professionally, which really I don't know if it ties into engineering. It does to me a little bit, but he's already like on this, great track, taking something that he loves and, turning it into something else. It was very interesting. He said he'll share next time because he had to go to practice.
That's good. I think there's a lot of engineers that do computer science and coding that they actually design games. And so they use that, and also people that do like a lot of animation and drawing, they utilize them too. So all your creative people are there. That's just way different than when I was in college, like in high school. If I would have got paid to play video games, man, I'd probably be eating Cheetos all day. But everything is different for everybody. But that's just how I think that's how the game has changed. The game has changed a lot, and the thing is gonna keep changing. And so different jobs, there's gonna be more automation happening, right? There's gonna be a lot of robots doing people's jobs, which that's the other thing. But yeah, you're right. That's a super cool thing that people are doing, getting paid for.
Well, we're not working on the Knowledge Bowl to get paid, but we are working toward those bragging rights. SOAR Prep has already planned what we are going to do to celebrate our win, our dub, as the word Mr. Patterson. So we are minded towards success in every respect. As a matter of fact, SOAR High School's music club wanted to encourage us. They weren't able to join the meet because they have classes scheduled at this time, but they are getting ready for their Black Music Knowledge Bowl, which is taking place tomorrow on SOAR High's campus. So they sent us this little video of encouragement.
Oh, hey there. Hey, how are you guys? Awesome. Great to hear it. Yeah, great to hear it. So we're here practicing for the Black Music Knowledge Bowl that's going to be happening at our school tomorrow here at SOAR High School, where we're basically going to play a trivia-like game to determine who knows the most about the history of Black music. Hope to see you.
Love to see it. Love to see it. So they are also Soar High is also participating in the Black Knowledge Bowl with us, but they are having that as just kind of a fun event and activity beforehand. And I have questions about the study guide, and I know we just have a few minutes left, but it is a lot of information. So like they're having the Black Music Knowledge Bowl. This study guide covers a lot of different categories. And the one question I have, Mr. Patterson, I know you've been involved before, so maybe you can answer. Are students going to need to know everything, including the fill-in? Like if they have the fill-in identification, do they need the context as well? Like, will this question be asked? Spike Lee's, he was a, what does it say? He was born to a Black history teacher and a jazz musician. Is that something that could come up on the Knowledge Bowl?
So the way that it kind of works, if you're familiar with Jeopardy, right? It's kind of patterned after Jeopardy. So he'll start with the beginning of the quote or the passage as such, and the first kid that kind of gets to it, they can just chime in or buzz in. I'm not sure how we're gonna do it this year because we're doing Chromebooks and Kahoot, so it's a little bit different than years past. But in years past, he would just kind of begin with the passage, and once the kid knows it, he just kind of hops in there and kind of and answers. Who is Spike Lee? So you answer it in the form of a question. So it definitely helps that they kind of know the context of it, right? But again, every team and every school has a different approach or could have a different approach. I go. AB has always traditionally gone with the all in. We all study the whole thing. I do know that certain teams kind of break it up in terms of, okay, you do Black cinema and this section, and that kid becomes an expert in that section, and so they're responsible for answering all the questions in that particular section. That may be a possibility because it kind of spreads it out, and everybody has a role, so to speak. There's no one correct way to do it, but to answer your original question, he'll start off with the beginning of the passage, and then ask kids, kind of know it, because as they study it, they're studying it, I would think, with the passage, with the fill-in. So you just kind of hop in like that. That makes sense.
It definitely does. We were kind of wondering about that as we were kind of setting up our Quizlet, or not our Quizlet, our Kahoot, what that might look like, because it is a lot of information. So that definitely helps.
Any team member can respond to any question.
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing with that, though, just like Jeopardy, if that team member kind of just hops in and kind of answers it and is incorrect, they get minus the points for the question that the point value for the question asked. So that's why there has it has to be a strategy or a team, some sort of team philosophy. We always win with if you feel it, rip it. Right? If you feel like it, jump in there. We'll take the hit on the missed question or whatever, because again, it's still all fun and games. But we had some kids who were very kind of like this section right here. You got some kids who are very visual type learners, right? And so they can remember the faces or the flags. There's a section where we kind of do the flag. So that kid became the expert for those sections, and that's all they did. They just studied the flags and studied the people. I'm always a little bit nervous about that because you don't want to have one person feel the weight of a particular section as such. So we try to spread it out to where everybody can pick up and kind of answer anything. But it's all about how the students kind of go, what feels comfortable to them.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to continue to study and do what we do. This is going to be really exciting. And as far as I can tell, the last list, are there 8 participating schools now? There's 6 or 8.
I thought I maybe saw 8, but I don't really know.
Yeah. Okay. No.
I'm just trying to get 4 students at AB because we started off with a lot, but slowed down. Then we started getting their lunchtime practices. My numbers are getting a little low, and people started getting a little scarce. But we just gotta do what we gotta do. We're gonna make it do what it do.
We are. We definitely are. Well, all right. Well, that concludes, I think, our February meeting for student leaders. We are like I feel like it's gone above and beyond, and this is really going to be a fun competition to kind of get toward the end of the year with. We got some great things still planned, still coming forth, but appreciate you all for your time. I hope you have a great afternoon, rest of the day, rest of the weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Have a great week, everyone.